For years, southern Europe was branded the Eurozone's liability. Greece, Spain, Portugal, and Italy were the problem children, drowning in debt, scolded by the North, and forced into humiliating bailouts. Berlin, Amsterdam, and Brussels lectured them on fiscal discipline. Northern newspapers painted caricatures of lazy Mediterraneans who lived beyond their means. The message was clear. The South was the burden, the North, the savior. But history is not static. And today, the roles have reversed in a way few could have predicted. France, once the second pillar of the Eurozone, faces a deficit spiral so severe that commentators whisper about an IMF bailout. Germany, the industrial giant, is trapped in its longest economic downturn since reunification. Even the Netherlands and Sweden, northern models of frugality, flirt with recession. And the South, it is thriving. Spain's growth has outpaced the bloc five-fold. Its economy expanded by 2.5% last year, compared to a Eurozone average of just 0.5%. Forecasts predict another 2.6% in 2025, cementing Spain as the bloc's fastest-growing major economy. Greece, once synonymous with default, is now running budget surpluses. Portugal's government has balanced its books and outperformed forecasts. Incredibly, in bond markets, Spain and Italy now borrow at cheaper rates than France. Think about that for a moment. Countries once dismissed as fiscal wrecks now enjoy lower borrowing costs than one of Europe's traditional powerhouses. Investors who once fled southern debt now line up for it. How did this reversal happen? The answer is layered, and it begins with pain. Austerity was devastating. Entire generations in southern Europe lost jobs, pensions, and prospects. Public services were slashed. Growth stagnated for nearly a decade. But in the long run, those brutal measures forced a transformation. Southern governments became cautious, disciplined, and pragmatic in a way Paris and Berlin never had to be. What once looked like weakness has become resilience. The second turning point was solidarity. The EU's $800 billion recovery fund, launched after the pandemic, poured resources into southern economies. Italy and Spain were the largest beneficiaries. Instead of wasting the windfall, much of it went into infrastructure, digital upgrades, and green projects. Italy estimates these funds alone will raise GDP by more than 3% by 2026. This was not charity. It was investment, and it worked. Third, energy. When Russia invaded Ukraine, Northern Europe's over-reliance on Russian gas became a disaster. Germany's manufacturing sector was hit hardest, losing its competitive edge. Southern Europe, with diversified energy supplies, LNG terminals, and renewables, avoided the worst of the crisis. For once, geography and foresight shielded them from a storm. And finally, tourism. After the pandemic, Southern Europe's sun-soaked economies roared back to life. Spain posted a record £126 billion in tourism revenue in 2023, and this year is already ahead of schedule. Greece and Portugal, equally dependent on visitors, saw their services sectors lift the entire economy. What was once mocked as an over-reliance on beaches and hotels has now become a durable advantage in a services-driven world. Meanwhile, the northern model is cracking. Germany's export-heavy economy, built on cheap energy and Chinese demand, looks outdated in a fractured global system. Growth has flatlined since 2019. France faces chronic overspending and political paralysis, unable to push through reforms while debt climbs past 110% of GDP. Even the Netherlands, long a hawk on fiscal discipline, is teetering on stagnation. The irony is breathtaking. For decades, the North dictated the rules of the Eurozone. They imposed austerity, demanded reforms, and insisted that the South learn discipline. And now it is Paris and Berlin that look in need of discipline, while Athens and Lisbon lecture with their balance books. This is not to say the South is invincible. Debt levels remain high. Wages still lag behind Northern Europe. Productivity growth is sluggish. And Italy, after a strong post-pandemic recovery, faces slower years ahead. But the psychological shift is real. For the first time in the Euro's history, Southern Europe is not simply catching up. It is outperforming. The cliches of lazy Mediterraneans and responsible Northerners no longer fit. In fact, they have flipped. The South has become the responsible steward. The North, the reckless spender. The question now is whether this is a temporary swing or the beginning of a structural shift inside Europe. If Southern Europe can prove resilient for another decade, it will permanently alter the balance of power within the Eurozone. And if Germany and France cannot reform, they risk losing the moral authority they once wielded so effortlessly. A decade ago, nobody would have believed that Greece could run a surplus, while France faced talk of an IMF bailout. Nobody would have believed that Spain could grow faster than Germany for 6 straight years. But here we are. Southern Europe has written its comeback story. The only question left is, can the North do the same? Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and visit westernrelations.com for more analysis on the shifting politics and power of the Western world.